Everybody's heard of the SI cover curse, but have you heard of the ESPNBoston.com high schools curse? Potentially, for the third week in a row, we could have a number one team going down, and if it does, it'll happen here at the newly renovated Hawk Bowl for our game of the week between number one Bridgewater Raynham and Xaverian. Brendan, bring you into our weekly preview here. What are the odds that 3 weeks in a row we could have a new number one team?
I don't know. This jinxing is starting to be a real thing, huh? You know, they got construction going on here. I was very careful pulling in the parking lot today not to walk under any ladders. Okay, I don't want to bring on a bad luck again. Okay, but yeah, this is turning into a real thing now, isn't it?
Might want to bring your hard hat to Saturday's game too, because there's a lot of construction going on here. But of course, folks, a kind reminder that our previews are brought to you by the Bay State Games and Sports Authority. Sports Authority, all things sporting good, are proud supporters of the Bay State Games, the state's largest amateur athletic festival. Now, Brendan, we got all those introductions aside and we got our foolishness out of our system here. Let's get down to nuts and bolts here. Xaverian coming in, knocking off the number one team last week in Everett, coming back home here for their first home game against BR, our newly anointed number one team after beating St. John's Prep in Duxbury. Can they make it 3 in a row on the road?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's going to be a toss-up, to be honest with you. Xaverian, I'll be honest with you, going into the season, I was a little bit more reserved about their defense than you were. I think they had some work to do. They definitely had some albatross to get off their chest there after last season. I was wondering, do they have enough playmakers on the defensive side of the ball to make something happen? And, of course, boy, was I proven wrong. That 28 win over Everett was quite the impressive defensive effort, I thought. Really shut them down for big spurts in the game. However, this is a different Bridgewater Raynham team than your typical, ground and pound. Yes, it's still the same thing. 22 personnel, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, but there's a lot of escapability element here. Matt Clement, the new quarterback there, in his second start, looked great against Duxbury. Looked great in his first start against St. John's Prep when they beat the preseason number one Eagles. He's got a real ability to stretch, not only stretch the defense to the sideline, but escape pressure and make plays at his feet. Obviously, the waggle is a big part of what they do. The 3 different levels, really stressing the defense, making them kind of pick their poison. And Brandon Gallagher is a big part of that because they set that up with a lot of running. And you look at the way that BR is setting up the waggle and that passing tree. They got him running over the top leaps, which he's really good at. They got him running counter steps. There's a lot of different elusive element to it. Even though it looks very basic, there's a lot of misdirection you can run off that. And all of that starts with Brandon Gallagher with the way he runs in between the tackles.
Now, speaking of Brandon Gallagher, obviously 2 of the elemental parts for Xaverian to be able to stop that. Nick Colantoni and, of course, Joe Gaziano coming off those ends. Both of those guys were terrific last week against Everett. Yeah,
absolutely. There's some athleticism there. Some lacrosse crossover was mentioned in the preseason. I know Kaminsky's been hurt; he's part of that. But a lot of when you have an athletic front like that, you can move them in a lot of different places. We mentioned about Everett, and we were talking here about the defensive line from Everett, and Josh Palmer at 5'10", maybe 108 pounds, soaking wet as a nose guard, really disrupting the A gaps and sugaring it quite a bit. And a lot of the same stuff here. Their front seven, Gaziano, such a intriguing moving part. He's a big dude. He's 6'3", 240. He plays a 5 technique defensive end. I'm always wondering if he can play in a 2-point stance at all anywhere in his career. If he can make a move from to outside linebacker in another scheme. A lot of pieces to work with here. It's a much different look from what they had last year.
We just caught up with Joe Gaziano. Kick things off with Joe Gaziano here now. Joe, taking a look at this Bridgewater Raynham offense. You guys are no strangers to each other. You know exactly what's coming year after year from this group, but with a running back like Brandon Gallagher coming out of the backfield, what are going to be the keys on defense this week?
I think we just need to play physical. We're a big team up front. They're a big team up front. It's just going to be a hard smash-mouth football game. I'm excited for it.
It looks like also in the early going that they've kind of gone to the pass in a couple different ways. Of course, the waggle is a staple of what they do there. What have you seen in film, though, that maybe is a little bit different from years past, perhaps?
Well, a lot of times they like to roll at the quarterback, and we'll see if we can contain him inside the pocket. We'll see what they bring out with their blocking scheme. It's been a little bit different in the years past, but I hope we'll be able to defend it well this year.
Now, taking a look at the offensive side of the ball, obviously Shane Kaminsky was out last week, but Noah Sorrento stepped in and seemed like a seamless transition there with you guys and the offensive line, which really played great at Everett. When you look back at that performance on Friday, what did you guys take away from that and your performance collectively?
Well, I think it's just that we played as a team that game. We really came together that night, and we realized that we needed to in order to win. And from last year, we learned that winning is hard. It's not an easy thing to do, so it was a great feat for us to come together. And Noah Sorrento is a great back. He came in at a big time and stepped up in a big performance.
Thanks very much, Joe. Now, taking a look at the Xaverian rushing attack last week, as you mentioned off the top, without Shane Kaminsky, in steps Noah Sorrento. Big first quarter touchdown to get things going in the right direction for Xaverian, and I think he filled in pretty admirably.
Absolutely, and he's like the perfect body type for this kind of offense. He's got that really low center of gravity. He's about 5'8", 5'9", maybe shorter, and it's hard to pick up behind those big bodies on the offensive line. And you talk about some of the best zone running teams. I don't know, Xaverian's not really a zone running team, but they typically have a small running back running behind big guys, and that's the same concept here. And I think it makes them difficult to pick up, and obviously with his lower body strength, you can't tackle him high up. You gotta be really disciplined.
So here's a look at the game from Noah Sorrento. Here with Noah Sorrento now. Noah, big spot last week. You go into Everett, first real game action for you guys. Your compadre back there in the backfield, Shane, is out for the game. Really, the game plan kind of falls to you. What did you feel just going into that game Friday night at Everett?
Yeah, I was a little bit nervous going in, but, the line's used to blocking as hard as I can. Shade's a great running back. It's unfortunate they couldn't play, but, I got to credit all the line. They really stepped up and made their blocks and gave it 100%, and that's how we were able to run the ball against them.
I thought the offensive line was really pretty good at controlling the line of attack during that game. What can you say about that group and what they did?
Yeah, the Everett defensive tackles and their front four, they were really good, but they weren't getting a lot of penetration, so the line was getting a good push on them, which allowed me to get into the second level and make some things happen with the ball.
Now, looking ahead to this weekend in the task at hand, Bridgewater, Raynham. 2 weeks in a row now we've had number one teams go down. One of them thanks to you last week. What are you guys going to have to do to make that 2 defeats of number one in a row?
Well, BR is a really run-based team, and they got a good running back, so we're going to have to obviously stop him and be really aggressive at the point of attack and stop him before he gets into the second level, because he can make some things happen once he gets past the defensive tackles. So we're going to have to stop him and then once again put up some points on offense like we did against Everett.
As a running back, looking at this Trojans defense, what do you see on the film and what are going to be the keys for you guys to be able to move the ball effectively on the ground?
Once again, the line's going to step up like they have been the past week, and we're going to try and run the ball hard and see what we can do. I mean, they're a good defense. They got a good team. The linebackers are good, and they got some good guys up front, so we'll see what happens.
Now, we talked about Sorrento starting the game against Everett last week, but really the nail in the coffin for that Hawks win last week, Farrell stepping back, finding DJ Spurtzel in the back of the end zone. Really great time and play on the fade with blanket coverage all over him. Talk about lacrosse earlier. Here's another kid, a lot of crossover there and abundant athletic ability.
Yeah, and he's got some Division I looks when he's standing, or is he commit? I'm not sure.
He's a commit. Yeah, lacrosse commit. Yep.
So there's a bunch of different things you can do that we talked about in the past years. When they faced Duxbury here 2 years ago, and all those lacrosse kids on defense just making plays on the balls. Yep. Same concept here, and Spurzel's a playmaker in space. The big thing with him is you got to get him in space and let him do his thing. And Farrell isn't a bad thing to look at either. I mean, I think that whole option game he brings and the athleticism there, they're not used to that back there. So you got to keep that in mind as well.
Here it is from DJ Spurtzel. Last but not least, here with DJ Spurtzel. Now, again, DJ, we've talked about this in the preseason going back to last year. You guys in lacrosse, obviously, great accomplishment last year, earning the program's first championship of any kind. A lot of guys here are teammates on both sides for you. Do you think that at all helped? I know it's different sports, but that camaraderie and going through an experience like that together, did that help this group coming in?
Yeah, I think it definitely gave us a lot of confidence for the guys that did play lacrosse. It's definitely huge for us, definitely for the lacrosse team, and for me, Peter, Shane, and Gaz too. I think it's just getting that sense of winning back again and everything. So, yeah, it was big.
Now, Jake Farrell steps in last week, basically his first real big game at quarterback, and then you really saw the chemistry between you guys late in the fourth quarter there. A really nice time and play to the back left side pylon. It's kind of uncommon that you see, a quarterback step in and have that kind of chemistry, I think, immediately. What has Jake done in the preseason to get himself ready to shine in a stage like that?
Jake's been working really hard. He's stepped up big time, definitely. He had some great runs, some great reads on me on the outside when the linebacker blitzed. He had a few great reads. I just cut inside, did a quick slant, and he hit me. He got great accuracy, and he can run the ball too. So I think it's going to be a good season for him.
Now, switching the page to Saturday here, going to be open up the Hawk Bowl with the new look and everything. It's going to be a great atmosphere. Yeah. But just what do you see from this BR secondary, and what are going to be some of the keys to that match?
We had a passing scrimmage against them, and they had some good D-backs. I don't think it's going to be anything like the passing scrimmage because they're primarily a running team, definitely. But definitely expect some guys to press me, considering last week. So hopefully I can just get a good matchup on the outside and Jake can make some more good throws to me.
And finally, this BR group has gotten the better of your number here for the last couple years. How much is that going to be a motivating factor? With everything else that's going on, this is a really big day for this program overall.
Yeah, it should be a huge game. There's not many chances where you get to go play the #1 team 2 weeks in a row, so looking forward to it. Should be good.
Thanks very much, DJ. We'll wrap it up here with Coach Charlie Stevenson in a minute, but before we do that, Brendan, let's take a look again at this BR team. Some of the different things that they've been doing on defense as well. Crazy stat here. In 9 years of Dave Mameron's tenure at Duxbury, they'd never been held without an offensive touchdown until Saturday night. What has been the element to success for this BR defense?
Yeah, I think it starts at the linebackers. Devin Morris having a nice 2-week run here. I think a lot of that with Duxbury was there were some plays, I think, at the end where they just weren't able to hit guys in the open. It could have been first downs, but I think a lot of that is again the BR, how they play, in the pass rush and also really hanging around with the receivers and leaving little tight windows, not big windows, tight windows, and they really testing the quarterback's arm and getting them in there. I think we're going to see a lot of that too. I mean, they play these guys in a passing scrimmage every year. You were there for see that one. I'm sure you could comment more about how the secondary looks, but the way they just trail the receivers and really challenge them. I think it's very commendable what BR does.
And of course, to take a wrap on this Game of the Week matchup, here's Coach Charlie Stevenson. Now here with the head coach of the Hawks, Charlie Stevenson. Now, Charlie, ongoing gag between you, Dan Buron, both guys who wear many hats at your schools. Who does the scheduling for these programs? You just mentioned you got 2 number 1s in a row here. What gives with that?
Well, Danny and I, have known each other for a long period of time, and we both became head coaches in the same year. So we're great friends, and we are the ones who are responsible for scheduling our games. So I guess, I'm going Everett to BR, and Danny did me one up. He's going Prep to Duxbury to us. So I guess me and Danny have always been of the same opinion that we always want to play against the best to try and be the best. And make no mistake about it, Danny always has coached that way, and he runs an outstanding program. And Bridgewater is a great football team, and it's going to be great for us to go out and play against them on Saturday.
Now, before we look at that matchup on Saturday, let's take a quick look back on Friday. Going into Everett, always a hostile atmosphere, a tough place to win with that 10-game, Catholic Conference streak coming in. Well, when you looked at the film, breaking down that performance, I know the offensive and defensive lines were 2 things that really stood out there. But what did you see when you were able to look back at that matchup and some of the things that stood out to you?
Well, clearly our special team play was really phenomenal. Joe Gaz kicked off great. He punted great, and we were able to make them start 6 or 7 drives, inside their 20-yard line, and we made them punt from there. So consequently, we had good field position to start a lot of drives. So, that really allowed for us to stay in the contest with them early until we began to develop some confidence, and our goal going into the game was to hang around until the fourth quarter and have a chance to win, and we were able to accomplish that. And then I think our kids, once they realized that we did that, they kind of got confident, and they thought they'd go out and win the game in the fourth quarter. And we made a couple of big plays. I'm not going to say they were, the way you'd necessarily draw them up on the blackboard, but that's what football is all about, is players making plays on game day. We were able to do it, and that was the difference in the game, really.
Now, with this BR team coming in, this is a team you see twice a year. You see them annually every year in the preseason and then during the regular season. How much is this, what we see on Saturday, going to be different from what you see them in primarily a passing scrimmage?
Well, they're not really a passing team. They like to run the football. So, what we do in the early going there really is just a way to break up the preseason and get ourselves, having some contact against another color jersey. I don't think either one of us really do necessarily what we would like to do during the season and on a weekly basis. Danny probably comes out of his game style more than we do because, as you know, he's a 12-play, run the ball kind of offense, 12-play drive, run the ball offense, and so we know that's he's not going to line up and throw the ball every down against us. And we need to focus on their run game, and that's what we will do.
Aside from being a matchup against the number one team in our poll, this is a big game for this program. You got the renovated field turf coming in and everything. There's going to be, obviously our game of the week here. What do you think are the intangibles behind this matchup and things that you need to do to be successful?
Well, it's like I said, it's a great opportunity for our players to go out and play against a great opponent and on our brand new field and in our brand new stadium. And, as far as once the game gets in between the lines, for us, it's really, we're focused on the defensive side of the ball of, really stopping their run game, stopping their play action game, and clearly we want to try and contain their quarterback. All of those things, of course, are easier said than done. And for us on the offensive side of the ball, it's all about execution for us. We need to block as well as we are capable of at the line of scrimmage in order to give our running backs, Noah, Shane, and Kenny a good opportunity to get into the secondary and make some plays. And we need to pass protect for Jake so that we can get the ball out to AJ and DJ on the perimeter. I think, if we are able to do those things, we have a lot of skill guys that we can put on the field who are very credible players. And, we're trying to make Bridgewater defend the field against us.
Thanks very much, Coach. Now, of course, it's our favorite time of the week, Brendan. Let's wrap it up with our Week 3 picks here.
Here we go.
A lot of stuff to get to. We'll get to our game of the week last. Let's start it off on Friday evening, BC High and Barnstable.
Yeah, BC High needed that win last week against Andover, but they've got some injuries that they're working with this week. Still, I think that rushing attack is going to carve up Barnstable a little bit there. It's going to be a close game. I think Barnstable's going to bounce back. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for this now. But still, give me BC High 20-10.
Picked with the Eagles last week, and a little bit of a Freudian slip for quarterback Sean Holleran. Sorry about that, Sean. But I'm going to stick with the Eagles this week. We'll call it 20-10. Moving on, Catholic interplay here between Central and East. St. John Shrewsbury, coming off the loss from Leominster last week, travels to Catholic Memorial.
It was a close game last year. I think St. John's won by 2 touchdowns. But otherwise, watching the second half of that game, I think St. John's figured it out. They threw a ton of middle screens. McGillicuddy had a ton of nice gains. Smiley ended up with 200 yards passing for the night after throwing for, I think, less than 50 for the first half. He's starting to heat up. I think they're finally getting a groove here. I got St. John's winning this one 28-14.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Pioneers on the bounce-back week here. I'll call it 32-28. This is the marquee matchup out west this week. Springfield Central and East Longmeadow. A couple teams here that could be vying for a championship.
East Longmeadow's getting hot. I think they're a little bit underrated. They had a really nice shutout opening weekend, and then they followed up with a pretty nice 28-14 victory over Amherst. However, there's too much weaponry to be contained here with Springfield Central. Not just Juwan Williams and Cody Williams, always at quarterback, but Malik Johnson. Keep an eye on this kid. 131 yards receiving the first week against Everett.
Big touchdown.
Two big touchdowns. So I think it's going to be a difference. And then Daquan Clemens back there. I mean, you can't get much better than that for safeties outside of 495. So give me Central 25-12.
I'm going to go with Central as well. I think it's going to be close, though. Jerron Williams with a game-winning touchdown. Call it 23-20. Let's go back to Eastern Mass here. Weymouth, again, a team that I think played Natick pretty tough last week. Couldn't come away with a win. Brockton, played St. John's Prep pretty tough, couldn't come away with a win. What gives here?
Weymouth is licking their chops after last year's playoff game against these guys. Brockton ran every direction they wanted around them. They had a bunch of yards. I don't know how many kids went over 100 yards that game. But still, I just don't not see. I mean, this is going to be pretty straw man of me to say. I just don't see a Bay State team beating Brockton. Not with, especially after last week, they're a little bit ticked off about the way that game ended. They just turned the ball over way too many times on their own end. This is a pretty good rushing attack. So give me Brockton, but give me them by a score. I'm going to say 21-13.
Yeah, I'm sure this is going to be a very focused Boxers team this week, looking to kind of tidy up some of those messiness last week. We'll call it 30-21. 2 in a row for the Boxers over the Wildcats. Let's go to the Bay State, and Walpole and Needham should be an intriguing matchup here.
Yeah, the key is going to be how they cover up Mikey Panapinto.
Yep.
Boy, he can hurt you in so many different ways. But as we've talked about, this is a pretty athletic Walpole defense for the number of new starters they got.
Yep.
Green is really confident in these guys. I think Bolster, Moriarty, all those weapons on offense, I think they're going to do just enough to take down Needham. Give me Walpole 25-24.
Yeah, I think that, that Rebels defense coming in with a lot of moving parts there. Carter Patry playing middle linebacker, playing on the outside. Interesting matchup there to see where he'll line up. But I'm going to go with the Rebels as well. We'll call it 36-28. There'll be some points on the board there. St. John's Prep and Central Catholic, always a great game early in the year. Should be no exception this year.
It's almost like the immovable object versus the unstoppable force here with Jonathan Thomas.
That sounds like a superhero movie.
It does. Everything he's done in the first 2 weeks, I don't think there's anything he's done to detract why he's the favorite for Mr. Football here. But that Central Catholic defense came into its own last week against Haverhill, 40-0 shutout. And even in the first game, against Lawrence, I think that's a little bit misleading. They were up 39-13 in the fourth quarter. The JVs gave up 2 touchdowns. This is going to be a close game, but I just don't see St. John's Prep losing this one. I think they have the ultimate firepower in the backfield, and that's the one-man wrecking crew, Jonathan Thomas. Give me Prep 20-14.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close one, too. Again, that Central defense, I think they can hang in it with this. DeAndre Drummond-Mary just committed to UNH the other night. Should be a good matchup, but ultimately, again, too much from the Prep. I'm going to go 17-14 by a field goal. This might be the real marquee matchup of the weekend. Leominster and Lowell, 2 teams that were looking, perhaps to make long postseason runs in their respective divisions here. This should be a really good one.
This one's going to be high scoring, I think. Lowell's probably the most athletic defense Leominster's going to see all year, and that includes Doherty at the end of the year as well. And on the other side, Lowell doesn't face a team like this that's so balanced and such multiple fronts. It's not just an I formation or a shotgun. It's a pistol. It's a 2-back set. It's a 1-back set. They throw so many different things. I've said this on the record many times. I really believe this. Dave Palazzi, one of the best play callers in the state. They're gonna come up with a good scheme, especially after the way they shut down Davon Jones last week in their win against St. John's. I just think Leominster is going to have the best defensive game plan they think they can get, stopping Jack Galvin, Keegan Latta, and all those weapons over the field. But it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I'm going to say Leominster 35-31.
I went way out on the branch a long time ago on this Lowell team. I don't think it's time to come back into the limbs now. I'm going to stick with the Red Raiders. I'm going to call it 28-21.
And that's looking pretty good right now.
Hey, hate to say I told you so, but so far so good anyway. But let's get into a couple ISL games here. Of course, ISL football action kicking off across the state here. Some really good matchups to start off in week 1. On Saturday, St. Seb's and Milton Academy.
This is an interesting one. I think it'll be a close game, but you have to account for Connor Strahan, the linebacker for St. Seb's, the Boston College commitment, by all means one of the best recruits in the state for this 2014 class. I think he does just enough with the defense in the end to hold off here, but give me St. Seb's 14-10.
I'm going to go with Milton Academy here. It's going to be a great matchup, as you mentioned, against Strahan, but the running backs for Milton Academy, I think, are 2 kids very impressive. Luke McDonald, Drew Jacobs there. They can really run the ball. I'm going to go 24-14. And then in another really big ISL match out of the gate here, Lawrence Academy and Governors.
I think Lawrence Academy can do just enough to stop Governors' win streak. They haven't lost a game under Jim O'Leary.
It's been a while.
How impressive is that? Tate Jazakis was one of my favorite players to watch last year. But it's a different Governors team, and I think Lawrence Academy, they've been building something with under Paul Zukowskis, and they get a nice group of wide receivers to work with as well as a good quarterback. I think they win this one. Let's say 28-23.
think the streak ends this year, but not this week. I'm going to go with Governors out of the gate, and we'll call it 20-14, which brings us to our biggest game of the week. Here, of course, as you know already, Sports Authority Bay State games will be here. Cornhole, all that good stuff. And
Don't forget football, Tosh.
oh, wait a minute. And there's a new field, by the way, which looks absolutely wonderful here. I can't wait to
They
see
did a
these
nice
ends.
job with this.
Very nice. This is going to be a great one. Let's have the pick, Brennan. BR, Zavarian.
Oh boy, do we go 3 weeks with a new number one? I don't know. I think BR has a little bit more in the tank. As nice as Zavarian's win over Everett was last week, I think BR is going to play ball control here.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to run hard in between the tackles. Clement is going to make a couple great plays to really keep the chains moving. I think it could be a low-scoring affair. Zavarian likes to play these low-scoring defensive affairs, as you know. But give me BR in the final couple minutes there, pulling one out on a nice field goal from their very underrated kicker.
Yeah.
Give me BR 17-14.
Ooh, big time. I like barking up the same tree there again. I think the Zavarian defense, I think one of the most improved units across the state, no matter what division. I like the matchup in the passing game, but as we mentioned before, neither of these teams they know the book on each other. It's not going to be anything new. It's going to be akin to last week, Zavarian and Everett, who can make more plays at the end, as Coach Stevenson alluded to. I'm going to stick with BR here. I'm going to say that the curse goes down this week, but again, I think it's going to be a real 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of affair. I'm going to go 16-14 with some wackiness going on all across the board.
Better start throwing salt over your shoulder, huh? Yeah.
We're going to start voodoo dolls, the whole 9 yards. We'll start saying rosaries and all that good stuff, but I think that's going to put a wrap for us here for this week. For Brennan Hall, I'm Scott Barboza. Keep it tuned to ESPNBoston.com.